Hey there, let me ask you something. Do you ever walk away from a conversation feeling just completely drained? Maybe you're second-guessing yourself, or you just feel totally depleted after dealing with certain people in your life. Well, if that sounds familiar, you are in the exact right place. Today's explainer is basically a step-by-step survival guide. We're going to talk about how to reclaim your peace and, honestly, your sanity from these energy-draining relationships. We're going to break down the exact psychology of why this happens and hand you a tactical playbook to actually handle it.
Okay, let's dive into this. The source material hits us right out of the gate with this absolute truth bomb. If you keep letting toxic people into your life, you're basically volunteering to be emotionally exhausted. Wow. That is a powerful realization, right? Toxic people don't just have a bad personality, they literally hijack your peace. So if you're feeling emotionally exhausted right now, I really want to validate that for you. The stakes here are incredibly high, and it's totally up to us to protect our own mental energy.
So, here is our tactical playbook for today. 1. The hidden emotional exhaustion. 2. Identify and fade out. 3. The gray rock method. 4. Enforce boundaries or escape. And finally, 5. Protect your future peace. All right, kicking things off with Phase 1, the hidden emotional exhaustion.
You know, the absolute most dangerous thing about toxic people is that they rarely come with a warning label. They hide right in plain sight. Sometimes they're incredibly charming, sometimes they play the victim flawlessly, and very often, they're actually helpful family members. And that is exactly what makes this so emotionally exhausting. They're deeply intertwined in our daily lives. But hey, we need to get crystal clear on our definitions here. Just because someone annoys you doesn't mean they're toxic. A toxic person is somebody who repeatedly disrespects your boundaries or disrespects you as a person. The key word there is repeatedly. It gets to the point where they leave you emotionally exhausted just by thinking about them. Literally, if the mere thought of interacting with someone drains your battery, you're dealing with toxicity.
So, how do we spot them? Well, there are very specific behavioral patterns you need to watch out for. These folks slowly train you to doubt yourself over time. They drain your confidence. They actively manipulate and guilt-trip you just to get their way. They'll gaslight your reality until you start thinking you're the crazy one. They absolutely thrive on constant negativity and drama. And honestly, perhaps the most telling sign of all, they rarely, if ever, take responsibility for their own actions. Once you see these patterns, trust me, you cannot unsee them.
Moving right along to Phase 2, identify and fade out.
All right, time to go from recognizing the problem to actually taking action. Do me a favor, grab a pen and a piece of paper right now and physically write down the names of the toxic people in your life. Seriously, don't let it just live up in your head. Your mental health is way more important than how long you've known somebody. Now look, I get it. It's not always realistic to just instantly cut people off, right? You might sit right next to a toxic coworker, or you've got in-laws coming over for the holidays. For those situations, we use the fade-out method. Instead of going from full contact straight to zero, you gradually, almost invisibly decrease your interactions. You take a little bit longer to reply to their texts. You suddenly become quote-unquote busy with work or personal stuff. You are essentially sneaking out the back door so quietly they barely even realize you're gone.
But what about those unavoidable family events? You know, Thanksgiving, Easter, the big weddings. For these, you need time-blocking survival tactics. First up, schedule short visits with a very clear communicated end time and a really solid excuse. Second, and I love this one, always drive your own car. That way, you have a guaranteed exit strategy and you are never trapped relying on someone else for a ride. And finally, if you're going with a partner or a trusted friend, agree on an exit code word before you even walk in the door. If things get too toxic, you drop the code word and you both bounce. You are strictly protecting your peace of mind here.
Which brings us to Phase 3, the gray rock method.
I am so incredibly enthusiastic about this technique because it is literally one of the absolute best ways to neutralize manipulators and energy vampires. See, a normal reaction to a toxic person is engaged, emotional, and defensive. But guess what? That's exactly what they want. They feed off that drama like oxygen. The gray rock reaction is the exact opposite. You become as boring and uninteresting as a literal piece of gray rock in a driveway. Your responses become short, totally neutral, and completely unenthusiastic. Just a flat, yeah, or okay, or These people want a reaction. When you show absolutely zero enthusiasm and give them zero energy, they just get bored and eventually move on to bother someone else. It's brilliant.
Now let's be real, keeping up that gray rock status isn't always a walk in the park. Family members especially know exactly how to push your buttons and trigger you better than anyone else on the planet. So if you feel yourself slipping back into those old emotional defensive habits, you have to stop. Distance yourself immediately. Just excuse yourself and go to the bathroom. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, fully disconnect for a second, and reset your energy. Do whatever it takes to come back out as that boring, unbothered gray rock.
All right, step 4, enforce boundaries or escape.
Now, if you have any history of being a people pleaser, this is probably where you're going to sweat a little. You might have literally never set a boundary in your entire life. But don't worry, we're going to make this incredibly simple. Bring back that pen and paper. Setting boundaries is just a straightforward 3-step process. Step 1, get crystal clear on what you will and will not tolerate, and write it down. If it's fuzzy on paper, it's going to be fuzzy when you say it out loud. Step 2, communicate that boundary clearly to the person. And step 3, and this is the absolute most important one, stay firm and remind them. If you've got a long history with this person, they are 100% going to test your boundary over and over again. Your job isn't to yell or get furious. Your job is just to fiercely, calmly repeat the boundary.
Listen to this and really let it sink in for a second. A boundary is not a suggestion. It is a rule for how people can interact with you. Toxic people will intentionally step over your line because they're trying to gain control of you. But here's the thing, if they cannot respect your rules, they do not deserve your time. You are in charge of your life.
So let's look at exactly what this sounds like in the real world with a couple of scenarios from the explainer's source material. Imagine a friend tries to pry for drama and says, "Oh, come on, tell me what Bill has been doing recently." You simply reply, "I'm not comfortable talking about my relationship with Bill anymore. Period." Or what if Aunt Betty criticizes your career or your life choices for the 100th time at dinner? You look right at her and say, "I'm happy with my decision and I'm not open to discussing it further." And if she brings it up again 6 months later, you repeat the exact same firm response. You are laying down the rule, calmly and directly.
But, sometimes setting a boundary just isn't enough. For severe, abusive, highly manipulative, or genuinely dangerous situations, you have full permission to execute what we call the Houdini exit. You just cut them off completely. Go no contact. Block their number, block them on social media, and here is the secret sauce. Resist the urge to explain yourself. They wouldn't accept your reasoning anyway. You don't need to justify your decision to them. Just pull a Houdini and disappear. Your mental health has to come first, no matter what.
And that brings us to our 5th and final phase, protect your future peace. Okay, so now you have the tools to distance yourself and handle that toxic behavior. But you also have to actively rebuild your circle. Flip to a new page on your paper and write down the traits of the people you actually want to spend time with. Seek out folks who uplift you and challenge you to grow. But as we wrap this up, we really need to unpack the psychology of why setting these limits feels so incredibly hard for some of us. Why is saying no so scary? Well, it almost always comes down to people-pleasing. As our source explains, people-pleasing is usually a childhood safety mechanism. You created it to avoid adding to the chaos of whatever home environment you grew up in. But listen to me. You are an adult now. You don't live there anymore. It is time to break that pattern. Saying no doesn't make you a bad person. Saying no is pure self-respect.
So the crucial point here is this: trust your gut intuition. If someone gives you bad vibes, listen to it. Dealing with toxic people is not about fixing them. Some people just actively thrive on negativity and manipulation, and frankly, that is their business, not yours. You are not asked to fix anybody. You are asked to protect yourself. So guard your peace fiercely.
I want to leave you with some immediate, slightly provocative homework to really kickstart your action plan. Who is the first person that popped into your head when we started talking about this today? Get their name in your head right now. And more importantly, what is one single boundary you can set with them today? Take back your energy, set that rule, and protect your peace. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.